Good morning, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of the Global Climate Finance Center, it's a pleasure to have you with us for episode 1 of season 2 of our webinar series, delivered in partnership with the ADGM Academy. For those who joined us last year, welcome back. And for those joining us for the first time, a very warm welcome. This series, as you know, builds on last year's edition, where we explored the climate investment lifecycle, bringing together senior representatives across financial institutions, government, and international organizations to unpack key friction points in mobilizing capital. This year, we are turning our focus to financing the water transition, in line with GCFC mandate from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to support the finance track ahead of the United Nations Water Conference 2026. As you know, and that's also the reason why we are all here, water is increasingly emerging as a critical priority, not only from an environmental perspective, but also from an investment and financing standpoint. So the challenge today is not only innovation, but how we move from solutions to scalable, investable opportunities. And that is exactly what this series aims to address, by bringing together perspectives across the ecosystem to focus on how capital can be mobilized and deployed in practice. Today's session will focus on the role of innovation and technology in enabling this transition and how we can bridge the gap between a pilot solution and large-scale implementation. Before we begin, I would like to thank our speakers for joining us today and for continuing contributing with their insights to this discussion, as well as ADGM Academy to be an exceptional partner on this. And with that, I will hand over to Rauda from the ADGM Academy.
Thank you, Sarah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and partners. It's a pleasure to welcome you today on behalf of ADGM Academy to launch the season 2 of our webinar series, Financing the Water Transition. From Abu Dhabi, a city built on resilience, vision, and responsible resource management, we are uniquely positioned to lead conversations that sit at the intersection of sustainability, finance, and innovation. Water, perhaps more than any other resource, defines the future of our economies, our ecosystems, as well as our societies. And today's session comes at a critical moment as we look ahead to the United Nations Water Conference 2026, and in alignment with the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs efforts to advance the global finance track. The question is no longer whether we invest in water, but how we do so at scale and with impact. At ADGM Academy and through our partnerships with major ecosystem players such as the Global Climate Finance Center, we are committed to enabling this transition, and we believe that Abu Dhabi can play a pivotal role not only as a financial hub, but as a convening platform that bridges capital, innovation, and policy to address global challenges. Today's discussion focuses on primarily important dimensions, including innovation and technology deployment. Around the world, we are seeing promising solutions emerge from advanced desalination and water reuse technologies to systems that improve efficiency and reduce waste. Yet, the real challenge lies in moving beyond pilots towards scalable, investable, and bankable solutions. This is where collaboration becomes essential. Governments, financial institutions, innovators, and infrastructure leaders must come together to create the right ecosystems. The ones that enable technologies to mature, attract capital, and ultimately deliver measurable impact. This series is designed not just as a dialogue, but as a platform for action, bringing together stakeholders who are actively shaping the future of water finance. Before we begin, I would also like to remind our participants that those who attend all sessions in this series will receive an official certificate of attendance issued by ADGM Academy. With that, I would thank again our partners at the GCFC, our esteemed speakers, and all of you for joining us today. Sarah, back to you.
Thank you, Rauda. I will now hand over to Shaima from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the opening remarks. Shaima, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, Rauda. First of all, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I was just about to say good morning, but it's a good day for sure. It's a pleasure to join you today for the first session of this webinar series on financing the water transition. We are confident that this series will make an important contribution to the preparatory process of the 2026 UN Water Conference, which the UAE is proud to be co-hosting with Senegal and will convene in Abu Dhabi at the end of this year. Allow me to begin by, first of all, congratulating GCFC, our close partner supporting the finance and investment track of the conference, as well as ADGM Academy for organizing this timely webinar. We began preparations for the 2026 UN Water Conference nearly 2 years ago through an extensive and highly consultative process to define its key priorities and outcomes. A major milestone was the consensus adoption of 6 themes for the interactive dialogues last July at the UN General Assembly, which will serve as a backbone of the conference and its main platform for substantive discussions. Among these, we introduce a new theme, investment for water, and this goes really beyond financing to also encompass technology, innovation, and capacity building, reflecting our strong focus on implementation. We must move beyond recommendations and focus on delivering tangible impact on the ground. And this focus is driven by stark realities. An estimated $6.7 trillion is needed to meet global water-related goals by 2030. And less than 2% of water financing comes from the private sector, and only 3% of climate finance is directed towards water. These figures underscore the urgency of mobilizing capital at scale. The UAE's own experience also reflects the strong prioritization we place on investments, financing, and technology and innovation. And despite being one of the most water-scarce regions in the world, we have achieved universal access to clean water and effectively managed demand across sectors. This progress has been driven by deliberate investments and the deployment of innovative solutions. And today's webinar brings together financial institutions, development actors, and private sector to explore how capital can be mobilized to address global water challenges. And I encourage you to think boldly about how finance, technology, and innovation can shift the status quo, and about the tangible initiatives that can be delivered by the 2026 conference. Preparations are well underway. We have appointed 12 co-chairs to lead the interactive dialogues, convened them at the high-level preparatory meeting in Dakar earlier this year in January, and developed detailed engagement plans and work streams. Momentum is building around the conference, and interest is continuing to grow day by day across all sector groups to help elevate the global recognition, attention, and action on water. You're all part of this global effort to accelerate progress on water and look forward to working with you in the next month ahead to deliver a successful conference in Abu Dhabi this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shaima. And now we can finally start. So Shargiil, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shargiil. I'm the Chief Sustainability of First Abu Dhabi Bank, and today I will be acting and moderating this session for us. Again, a very warm welcome to the first episode of the season 2 of this webinar series of financing the water transition. As already mentioned by Rauda and Shaima, water security has moved to the center of the conversation on economic resilience, climate adaptation, and social stability. And yet, despite growing urgency and unprecedented innovation, progress on the ground remains uneven. Over the past decade, we've seen remarkable advances in water technologies, from advanced treatment, reuse, digital monitoring solutions, and AI-enabled hydrological modeling. But the challenge today is not about whether innovation exists. The real challenge is the deployment at scale. So many solutions remains limited to pilots, demonstrations, or isolated use cases. So this is the gap we need to close through the help of investability and innovation, where we can really scale these solutions and create a significant impact. Before we dive in, I would like to again thank the ADGM Academy for hosting this discussion, but also to GCFC for convening this very important and timely discussion. And before we move on, I would like to hand over to our panelists today so to introduce themselves before we kick off with the dialogue. So Shatha, can I kindly ask you to introduce yourself first?
Yes, sure. First of all, thank you, Shargiil, and thank you, GCFC and the ADGM Academy for putting this conversation together. My name is Shatha Alaydaroos, and I work at the International Affairs Office at the UAE Presidential Court. And I'm a part of a team where we manage, on behalf of the UAE, a $200 million a partnership with the Gates Foundation to accelerate agricultural innovation and support smallholder farmers in climate vulnerable regions as well. Back to you, Shargiil.
Thank you so much, Shatha, and thank you very much for your time today. Let me hand over to Ramdas to introduce himself.
Thank you, Shargiil. Hello, everyone. My name is Ramdas Rao. I'm the International President at Airjoule Technologies. We are a NASDAQ-listed US firm, and we've made Abu Dhabi as our international head office. So I operate out of the ADGM.
Thank you so much, Ramdas. So Ramdas, let me maybe kick off this discussion with you first. From your perspective, also having this global view, what are the most relevant technology and innovation areas that is shaping water solutions today, both in a global context, but also maybe in a regional context as well, since you have both views?
Thank you, Shargiil. Happy to do that. And I think a lot of the important topics were actually mentioned very quickly by Rauda and as well as yourself, Shargiil. There has been a lot of work going on in water technologies over the years in many leading economies of the world. The UAE as well has put together a very strong plan where they've tackled this from supply side, the demand side, as well as the transmission, right? So in fact, the GCFC, Omar at GCFC had a very good article out a few days ago about how people keep talking about water security, right? The UAE is already thought through a lot of this. It's a matter of now scaling all of this. And the UAE is also very well placed to use whatever has been scaled out here, and with the help of people such as Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other entities to scale it to other parts of the world. A couple of topics that I'll talk about probably in terms of innovation that I think are going to be very relevant. One is going to be decentralized generation. Centralized generation, there's already a lot of work that's gone in. You talk about desalination. The UAE has been a leader. We moved from thermal to RO and all of that. A large amount of companies, publicly listed large companies such as GE Vernova, one of our partners, Siemens, others, have already done a lot of work on the centralized generation. Then there comes decentralized. Something similar to what happened in power, where it moved from centralized to decentralized. I think there have been a lot of new technologies. Airjoule, where I work at presently, we've worked on something called air to water, which has gone through its own sort of cycle, or rather growth curve, I would say, or maturity curve, wherein we started, air to water started, not Airjoule specifically, but air to water started with condensation and generating water through condensation. That's a very energy intensive kind of way. Then came many advanced materials. Airjoule spun out of one of the US national labs. The Department of Defense was very interested in generating water at remote places, also in having a backup because of all the problems with centralized generation, irrespective of the needs. So centralized will remain in place, but decentralized will come in to support it. With centralized, you also have the risk that you run of cyber attacks, which is becoming more and more prominent in an uncertain world. Whereas with decentralized, you have the ability to move beyond that. That's one, decentralized distributed generation. The second would be AI. And I think probably Shatha will speak about that going forward. But I think AI, as well as the infrastructure for AI, data centers are going to need a lot of power and water. And the ability to generate water close to data centers is going to be something that's going to be highly relevant. Now, remember, industrial and agricultural use a lot of water. With industrial use, you have a lot of waste heat that you can use as well. So that's sort of an allied kind of area where there's a lot of new companies coming in. There are a lot of companies in the UAE that are using waste heat. Airjoule also uses waste heat to generate water at much cheaper than what can be done on a standalone basis. So I think addressing your topic of your question, distributed water generation, AI infrastructure, and maybe using waste heat for recycling. These are kind of the high level sort of areas that I think will be very relevant.
Thank you, Ramdas. And maybe Shatha, over to you. So we know that AI has become one of the key themes and having a significant impact globally. And you and I have spoken before around Hydro AI, which integrates AI with hydrological models. But how does this type of innovation improve real-time decision-making and accessibility for end users? So if you could maybe just explain the solution and how it's creating an impact.
Yes, sure, definitely. So before I get into Hydro AI itself, I just wanted to give a bit of context because Hydro AI sits inside something bigger, and that's part of why it works the way it does. As I mentioned in my introduction, we currently manage the partnership with the Gates Foundation on accelerating agricultural innovation, including water. And this partnership led the UAE to become the first country actually in the region to join CGIAR, which is the world's largest agricultural research network where they tackle press challenging, including food security and water security. And that partnership has built on the launch of CGIAR AI Hub in Abu Dhabi, which is a global collaborative platform here hosted in Abu Dhabi, where we leverage the UAE's capabilities in AI, couple it together with CGIAR's extensive knowledge and data, more than 50 years of agricultural data, to work together and turn this into a tool that people can actually use it, whether smallholder farmers or the most vulnerable people that needs these AI tools. So Hydro AI is a flagship under that AI hub. So to your question, first of all, hydrological models are critical because they are the foundation of how water is managed. They help us understand how water move across different basins or rainfall or river flow and so on. And it allows governments to plan in advance for floods, droughts, or water allocation as well. And the challenge today is that water data is highly fragmented across different institutions, across different borders, and most hydrological models are either too coarse to support decisions or take years to build and calibrate. And that's why exactly where we partnered with leading hydrological institutions like the International Water Management Institute, IMI, which is an institute under CGIAR, and Texas A&M University, along UAE-based AI leaders like AI71 and the American University of Sharjah, to build a next-generation AI-enabled hydrological model. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We are just taking advantage of AI to build a better hydrological model. And for end users, this is actually changes how decisions are made. So it moves from delayed reactive decisions to real time. It makes them, it enables water managers to fully understand not just what is happening in this small basin, but what will happen in the next and what kind of action to take. That's with the help of AI. So instead of only predicting events like floods, we allow users to simulate scenarios, play around of scenarios, what if scenarios, and see, for example, what if a dam is released, or what if an irrigation expands, or under future climate condition, what will happen if for example, a certain amount of rain did rain. And importantly, for us, accessibility is central to the design of this project, which is why we're not only enhancing a hydrological model with AI, but we're also building a decision support dashboard and an interactive digital twin of the Limpopo Basin, River Basin. The dashboard first will make this complex data in the hydrological model to be easy access, usable, into simple charts for decision makers to quickly understand what is happening and act upon that. And the digital twin is literally virtual copy of the basin that will allow users to test what-if scenarios that I talked about, and before taking decisions in real life. And just to sum it up, we've also chosen Limpopo River Basin because it's a critical basin. It is more than 400,000 kilometers of transboundary water resources that is shared by 4 African countries in Botswana, Mozambique, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. And so far, because the project started from last year, end of last year, we've already seen real gains. The model that now we've enhanced used to take up to years to build the hydrological model. Now it takes up to weeks to actually build for basins. And further with AI integration till the UN Water Conference, I'm sure that we will shorten even that further. So, and just to finish my remarks on this question, it is also built as a global public good. So no cost for the 4 Limpopo countries to use it. It will be open access, particularly for water-scarce countries as well, regions. So basically, it turns complex water data into clear, actionable insights to make better, faster, accurate decisions on water.
Thank you, Shatha. It's truly fascinating, right? And I think it's really fascinating to hear both you and Ramdas that, how technology really evolving from this perspective. Maybe just following up, Shatha, on this. So when we look at it, and I think you made it very clear that, the solution really helps you get access to this data, in real time as well. What is the real world deployment you have seen already, or what are your expectations in the short to medium term, how these solutions will get deployed, and what will be the real world impact that we can expect from these solutions?
Yeah, definitely. So what makes Hydro AI is a bit different, that we're not building it in isolation. We're co-developing it with the people who will actually use it. So I've just returned from Maputo, Mozambique, where the Limpopo Water Course Commission convened basin authorities from all 4 African countries to co-develop the user journey that we're currently working, and we've sat with end users, hydrologists, decision makers to actually understand the operational realities on ground. We wanted to understand the data gap as well. We wanted to understand what kind of decisions they need to make using this tool. So instead of handing over a finished tool to them, we're building it together with them from day one to ensure that it's actually practical, deployable, and can be used immediately. And by developing that and by validating the innovation together with end users, that's how we move from innovation to real world deployment. So we made sure that while building it, that they will have the benefit of using it in real life. I've also visited the river there. I've met with the people who make decision on how much water gets released from this dam, for example, how much water allocation for irrigation is released, but they make that decision based on their experience without a tool based on a data or a tool that they can rely on. So for us,
when I've talked to that guy, he said, if you gave me this tool so far till the UN Water Conference, and if I can use it, that means you've done the real deployment, or you've gave me a tool that I can actually call our neighbor's country and tell them that if we release this amount of water downstream in Mozambique, you'll have a flood. So that's the vision of our project. We co-develop it so we can easily deploy it in real world.
Thanks, Shatha. And then maybe just Ramdas, coming over to you, how are you seeing when we look into the air-to-water solutions? What are the kind of the real-world deployment impact that you're expecting we'll be able to see in the coming future?
Thank you for asking that question, Shargiil. I think everyone in our company at Airjoule Technologies we are here because we love the impact that this technology can actually bring to people, right? We all tend to sit, and in a past life, I was investment officer at a very large family office, worked at institutions. We always theorize, we talk about the technical stuff, we optimize plans. But when you go on the ground and see, just as Shatha mentioned in Limpopo, there used to be a place where we used to invest as well, right? Bringing water to places where water did not exist before. The impact that you have on the quality of life, on people's life. There are still people walking very far away just to get water. Their entire day is calibrated around the ability to bring water for simple livelihood, right? The ability to bring water where it was not is something that everyone at Airjoule Technologies, including me, considers to be highly impactful. Now, being able to do this with the least amount of power possible. So that's one. The other is whenever there are natural disasters, right? We think about sending power gen sets over there. What if we could send a gen set that generates water instead of generating just power, right? And you couple both power and water together, and you have these microgrids everywhere where the gap is filled between the time that the planning for centralized power water generation can come to the time that you have nothing. So bridging that gap is where we see so there's always a place for all kinds of companies that bring a solution to the table. I call it like the Uber solution. When Uber came up, right, you already had taxi services everywhere, right? So what was the value that Uber brought to the number one? You got transparency. You knew how quickly it would come. So if ahead of time, if you bring a cube that can generate water and you know how much water is coming out of it, or the AI solution, you know how much you have all the hydrological data, you know how much water can be released or not, right? The other thing is when if your pipes have gone off or the centralized water has gone off, you're willing to pay any amount of money to get that Uber on a rainy day. You're willing to pay any amount of money to get water when water is not easily available. So there are these solutions. Companies that come up with these solutions will make real impact to people's lives and actually benefit from it economically. Now, there is a gap here between reaching that stage because all technologies have to go through a maturity cycle and trying to understand, because in a normal scenario, these distributed generations or new technologies might not be economically feasible. But there is a pathway that all these companies have to traverse before people realize there's a value to it and you're able to tap into it.
Ramdas, thank you so much for this. But maybe just as a follow-up, so I think both with Shatha mentioned and you mentioning that we are having these amazing technologies that are really creating a real-world impact, which we're actually looking for. I'm really keen to understand how come that these technologies have emerged in the UAE from all places in the world, right? Because you mentioned as well from a US company, you decided to be in the UAE, and you could have been decided to be anywhere in the world. Why is it that UAE is being so attractive and so leading in this innovation?
So is that addressed to me?
Yes.
Okay. So in our case, it was actually not too difficult a decision. Number one, In the US, there are certain water-stressed regions of Texas, Arizona, Nevada. We're already running all our test cases out there. The UAE is in a region that happens to be water-stressed. But that's a necessary but not sufficient condition, right? When we were trying to figure out what the UAE offers us is a government and regulatory infrastructure where the leadership of the country is really interested in bringing new technologies and helping them scale. Right. There's also the ability to produce our machines in the UAE. For our machines, instead of using copper, which was used typically in air-to-water generators to do the condensation, and air conditioners used copper a lot, we use aluminum instead of copper. UAE happens to be one of the largest producers of aluminum. Right. There were things such as this that played a big role in having us come here. But I think the biggest advantage I see is the ability to have skilled professionals from everywhere in the world. And UAE has kept that open framework. The government is interested in making sure that people educated, scientific oriented, engineering oriented from all parts of the world feel happy to come here and practice their craft. And we wanted a location where we could hire the best talent, have, not necessarily want to fight regulations, but have regulations that help us. So that was our sort of thinking in coming over here to the UAE.
Thank you, Ramdas. And Shatha, I just want to jump over to you. So I think Ramdas very clearly explains that, how we can take these global solutions, and you mentioned as well, taking solutions developed in the UAE in collaboration with the UAE that are creating impact in Africa as well. How can we take this global research and these regional initiatives? How can we bridge this to create even bigger impact and scale these solutions to a wider impact across the world?
Yeah, sure. So by bridging global research with real-world impact comes to integration and co-development. So we connect global science through partners like CGIAR and the IMI, International Water Management Institute, the World Bank as well, with regional implementation by embedding solutions directly with end users and national institutions. Just to even leverage Ram's answer on that, the UAE has made its soil ripe and for piloting such advanced global initiatives. It uniquely combines three main things, in my opinion: strategic vision, global partnership, and execution capability. So first of all, we have the AI infrastructure. We have the computing power. We have the leading research institutions such as Mohammed bin Zayed University of AI. All that initiatives allow us to build products like Hydro AI locally and together with international partners to provide a global solution. And also we have convening power. So through platforms like CGIAR AI Hub and the UAE Gates partnership, we've built in the UAE an AI ecosystem for global agricultural development, where the UAE is able to convene leading institutions across the world, together aligned with the UAE's capabilities in AI, together in one system to co-develop solutions that are both scientifically rigorous and technology advanced as well. And also, the UAE is highly action oriented. We don't want to stop at research, but we want to focus on deployment and real world impact. And also importantly, as mentioned in this webinar, it is also backed by scale in finance. So the UAE has also announced major programs through ADFD, which is Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, including $1 billion for AI for Africa, focused on infrastructure, for example, and agriculture and healthcare, and $2 billion of global water initiatives with strong focus on Africa. So together, these initiatives, these regional let's say aspect will support in scaling impact in developing products here in the UAE and scale it globally. So And in my opinion, after we successfully touch base or develop this hydrological model in the Limpopo Basin in South Africa, we can easily then take it and scale it to different basins across the world.
Thank you, Shatha. And maybe I just want to move. So I think both yourself and Ramdas have shared some great examples of how we're really seeing technology, being used as its best to really scale impact. But we also need to recognize that, we are having some barriers, right? Because we still face challenges when it comes to water. Maybe, Ramdas, I would like to start with you. What do you see being the key barriers to scaling these solutions to at a global level and really making an even bigger impact than they're doing right now?
Right. I think there are quite a few barriers. Whenever there is new technology, adoption is not linear. There's always a technology maturity curve, which I keep referencing. There is an adoption curve, right? Both have to go in parallel. And then you need champions along the way. So you need large organizations or ecosystems to understand, to take a longer term view of what will be a necessity 5 years down the road, but is a good to have today. I'll give you an example. I mean, right opposite the ADGM is Cleveland Clinic. It's a humongous center that was brought into Abu Dhabi, for example. Does Abu Dhabi need another Cleveland Clinic or something at this point in time? Perhaps not. If Cleveland Clinic did not exist, it's not that Abu Dhabi's healthcare system would have been worse off. But because you have that spare capacity, the capacity building concept that ecosystems can take into account to bring in new technologies and have them ride this technology maturity curve is something that companies and new technologies would love to have. Scaling of new technologies brings economies of scale. So today, if a gallon of water that we produce costs X, right? If we were able to scale this technology, we would be probably 1/10 of X for a gallon of water 2 years down the road. And this goes for various technologies. So the ability to scale. Now, what do we need for scaling? We need companies to give us the opportunity to do a pilot project. Do companies have to spend on it? In terms of, yes, some time, some manpower, and understand where we do a proof of concept. There are many companies in many parts of the world that wouldn't even want to do a pilot project, right? There's a lot of conceptualization. Do we need it now? Show us the benefit, all of that, right? The ability to do a pilot project is number one. Number two is the ability to sort of think at a very granular level, at a high level, is centralized production of water enough? Should we rethink that framework and have decentralized capacity building for times when something may happen to one of the centralized sources of water? So that kind of thinking gives companies and technologies the ability to scale, make itself more economical and feasible, and gain funding from the market. Airjoule has taken the first step in terms of we've tapped the capital markets in the US, and now we are NASDAQ listed. We are able to tap into capital markets when necessary to grow, to grow and scale, to go right up this technology maturity level, so we can bring equity to the table. We'd love to see other ecosystems bring debt to the table. I know there's a lot of large companies looking to do that. And then we need companies to allow us to demonstrate our technology and believe that this technology is on a curve that's going to improve. So I speak for Airjoule technology, but I can imagine many similar technologies wanting to do. But I would put scaling and the support for scaling as one of the key sort of roadblocks that most technologies such as ourselves would face. And if we were to overcome that, I think we'll make the world a better place, for lack of a better phrase.
Perfect. Thank you. And maybe, Shatha, from your perspective, what do you see the key barriers from where you're sitting?
Yeah, so all what Rams mentioned, barriers are real, whether it's capital or adoption or the infrastructure, scalability as well. And in water, they're all also deeply interconnected. If you look at global priorities like the UN Water Conference 2026, one of the core dialogues is water for cooperation, which shows that the challenge is not just technical or financial. It is about aligning multiple sectors across borders and institutions. So water itself cuts across different SDGs or development priorities, whether it's from food security to climate resilience. So fragmentation becomes one of the biggest barriers, in my opinion. Data sits in silos, institutions operate separately, and solutions are often developed without being fully integrated into decision-making systems. And as well, let's be honest, geopolitical challenges as well in some river between upstream and downstream countries. For example, Nile River Basin plays a huge barrier as well. And just to sum it up from where I said, the key issue is not just choosing one barrier over another. It is the lack of integration, actually. These challenges don't get solved by a single actor or by a single intervention. They get solved when countries bring together data, when we bring together the technology, the institutions, and financing also into one a coherent system and connect that to global platforms like, for example, CGIAR AI Hub, that where we are trying to move from isolation pilots to scalable system level impact by bringing all leading pioneers in the field together in one place to actually develop a tool to scale it in these regions. So that's my barrier in my opinion.
So Shatha, what will be that one bottleneck that you think that we should really focus on that could really help unlock some large scale deployment?
Honestly, Shargiil, that will be fragmentation. Especially fragmented data, fragmented institutions, and then decision making. So in water, everything exists, but in silos. Data across the agents or models disconnected from operations, and solutions are not fully embedded into how decisions are made. And big gaps between countries share the same river basin. For example, in Limpopo, in Mozambique, I've seen a huge big economic gap between two countries in Zimbabwe and South Africa or Botswana, for example. And unlocking these gap or if this bottleneck was solved, it will create a new solution and maybe we can integrate what already exists in one system. And when countries align data, when countries align technologies, when they are all connected to global platform or into one integrated system, we can then move from pilots to deployment. And that's when solutions become, usable, adopted at a national and a cross-border level. So this is our hope with Hydro AI, that we bring this technological solution, the enhanced hydrological model, where a decision maker can have a greater look of the whole basin and see what the impact would be on the whole basin across four countries. So my main issue is fragmentation. So together and to solve this, it'll be great in my opinion.
And Ramdas, the same question to you. What do you believe is the one bottleneck? Let's do besides fragmentation.
I think fragmentation definitely silos, but I would reiterate what I last mentioned is if within the UAE ecosystem, since we are speaking about UAE and innovation, there are KPIs that are formed at the top level for leadership to allocate a small portion of the time, their resources, their money to have innovative companies come and do pilot projects for them to show proof of value, right? Whether it's funded, unfunded, whichever way. But let innovation come in, try out and see what fits, and then have capacity building as some of that. You already do it with HR in terms of capacity building. Let's do this in terms of innovation as well. Having some resources today, maybe they're not feasible or just break even, but once you ride that technological curve, they will become very, very helpful and leverage technology for generating water for all. So I think having leadership level top-down KPIs for people, the ecosystem will be very helpful in getting this moving.
So I think I've heard many places that 2026 has been named as the year of water for very many different directions, right?
Exactly.
And Shaima mentioned as well, Radha mentioned as well, we have the UN Water Conference coming later this year, which is going to be a critical point where we bring together the whole global direction and put the focus on the topic of water. Maybe just understanding, and Ramdas, let me start with you. What is your hope or expectation of an outcome from the UN Water Conference that could really help technology and help it scale?
I think a conference is a good thing where people come, see what's available, leadership and decision makers come and understand. What I like about how UAE as a country runs conferences, and this is my COP28 experience, you leave with a deliverable, right? You plan for having a deliverable and say that this is the deliverable that we will carry on. And after the conference is over, people can reach back into a certain organization to make sure the learnings and the deliverables are carried on so that it's not just a good to have and information. So as a deliverable, maybe if we could have UAE become a source for water gensets, wherever water is needed, for example, or wherever water planning is needed with hydrological data and AI, wherever maybe data centers are coming up, let's have water gensets go there until a centralized system comes in and takes over. So if the UAE can, if out of this conference, we can have someone take the leadership, and I'm very sure industry would support whatever the government puts forth and is willing to probably work with them, come up with these sort of solutions and takeaways so that the conference just doesn't remain an exchange of ideas, but there's a deliverable that can be used for impact going forward.
Thank you so much, Ramdas. And Shatha, from your perspective, UN Water Conference, of course, going to be a huge gathering to look into how we can really help scale solutions. What are your expectations? What are you looking forward to at the UN Water Conference?
Yeah, so during the UN Water Conference, that's happening end of this year, for us, success is very concrete in terms of delivering a fully functional AI augmented hydrological model, and along with a decision support dashboard and a live digital twin of the Limpopo River Basin that governments or guests can actively interact with using to simulate scenarios and see if they can take decision based on that. And second, it is about real country ownership. If basin authorities from these 4 countries, whether it's South Africa or Zimbabwe or Botswana or Mozambique, are there in the conference delivering their feedback on this tool, saying how this will be integrated into their decision making, that will be a key success for us. And finally, also replicability. So if we build this hydrological model that can be adapted and deployed across multiple countries, that will be a huge win for us in UN Water Conference, for international guests to see this solution, to think that they can adapt it and take it beyond the water conference and deploy it in their basins. And honestly, whenever I get asked about looking ahead of the UN Water Conference, I always think beyond it. What really matters is what will happen after the conference and whether we've set things up to scale the pilots that we've developing into deployed solution to different basins. So we'll take this opportunity to showcase Hydro AI, to showcase the digital twin to international communities, and we're open for opportunities to engage with other stakeholders to expand it to different basins across the world. So that's my main takeaway, or that's my desire leading up to UN Water Conference.
No, I think this surely is going to be a very, very interesting UN Water Conference, and I think everybody here will be looking forward to this, and also hopefully, especially to the outcomes, right? So how we'll be able to embed them and help scale from that perspective. Shatha, Ramdas, thank you very, very much for taking the time and sharing your insights with us. And also, again, a very big thanks to ADGM Academy for hosting this. Thank you very much for GCFC for convening this. Sarah, let me hand over to you for some closing remarks.
Sure. Thank you, Shargiil, and thank you all for a very insightful discussion. Many thanks again to our speakers for sharing their perspectives. We hope this session has provided useful insights on how innovation and technology can support the development of scalable and investable water solutions, and how this links to broader capital mobilization. And as a reminder, this is just the first episode of the series. We will continue the conversation at the end of May with episode 2. I also noticed that some of you have shared questions in the Q&A around the financing instruments. Please note that this topic will be covered in more detail in episode 2, where we will focus on financing water infrastructure, from blue bonds to broader capital mobilization approaches. So we hope to see many of you there. And just a little reminder again that participants who attend the full webinar series will receive a certificate of attendance from ADGM Academy. Please also note that the recording of this session will be uploaded on the GCFC YouTube channel, and I will share the link with you in the chat now. And thank you again for joining us today. We look forward to continuing the discussion in the upcoming sessions, and thanks to our speakers and the ADGM Academy again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Thank you,
day.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye now.